Hello and welcome back to the Red and White podcast. Today, joining me, a man who needs no introduction. It's Sunderland legend, Gary Bennet. Gary, thanks so much for coming on. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, sir. Yourself?
I'm good, mate. Looking forward to this. To jump straight into it, how did your footballing journey start?
How did my footballing journey start? Well, the usual pathway, playing football in school, following my brother. He was a professional footballer as well. From primary school, then into obviously secondary school, playing on a Saturday, playing on a Sunday, the usual rigmarole you go through. And then, fingers crossed that, you get spotted. And then hopefully you go on from there.
Yeah. Was there anyone like early on in your life, obviously you mentioned your brother there, who really helped you along the way, especially with the football?
Yeah, there was a gentleman who was obviously a youth leader. He was the youth leader at Moss Side Youth Club, fella called Billy Hughes. He helped me a lot on my way to get to where I am at the present moment.
Yeah, I always think it's an interesting one to ask. So obviously you're at Cardiff just before you came to Sunderland. I know that Len Ashurst was at Cardiff and then he came to Sunderland just before you did, I believe. What was it that made you want to come to Sunderland?
Well, first of all, I started off at Manchester City.
Yeah,
I left Manchester City. I got released from Manchester City, so that was an experience for me, which I look back on now that it made me a lot stronger, a lot more determined to, obviously, to get to where I wanted to go. Went to Cardiff. I played under a manager called Richie Morgan and Tony Buck, who was at Cardiff. He left his job. Len Ashurst came in from Newport County, took over, did very well at Cardiff, and then he got the call to become manager of Sunderland, which was an opportunity which Len Ashurst couldn't turn down at the time because it was obviously managing at the top level. And before he left, obviously, I had a good relationship with Len. Obviously, he believed in what I could do. He said that, how would I feel if he had the opportunity to come in and hopefully try to sign me for Sunderland Football Club, which, for me was a fantastic opportunity. I think from any young player, one thing which they wanted to do was, play at the top level. And that was something which was given to me. An opportunity was given to me through Len to obviously sign for Sunderland Football Club.
Yeah. What was your first impressions and first experiences like when you moved to the area?
First impression. First of all, excited. I didn't know if the deal was going to go through or not. I had to go to a tribunal. I did have a couple of offers on the table. I could have gone to Crystal Palace. I went down, held talks with them. But no, obviously, to play at the top level, that was one of the reasons why I signed for Sunderland Football Club. First impressions, yes, it was something totally new to myself. Obviously, going into the Northeast, there was only one occasion I've been to the Northeast before, was to play in the Youth Cup for Manchester City against Sunderland. So that was a new experience to move right up north, but also to be in a changing room, to play at top level, to, shall we say, to express my skills. It was a challenge, but it was a challenge I was looking forward to.
Yeah. Was there anything that stood out about the club in particular when you there first came in?
Well, to be fair, I was told a lot about the football club through Len. Len Ashurst was a legend at Sunderland Football Club. I think he was the third highest appearance maker at the football club. So he sold me the club. He told me how big it was, what you can achieve. And yes, it was. He basically said it's up to myself now. He gave me the stage, and then he said, "Well, hopefully, you can go and perform."
Yeah. Would you say there's a particular intensity about the Sunderland fans, or would you say that there's something about the people of the area that's different to most clubs? I was speaking to Kieran Brady the other day, and he said that he thought there were huge similarities between where he grew up in Scotland and the Northeast. Like, is that something you would agree with? I mean, obviously not Scotland, but that there's a kind of a uniqueness about the Northeast, maybe?
Yeah, there is a uniqueness about the Northeast, and yeah, and the thing is, you can speak a lot about it, but you've got to experience it yourself, and you travel all around the country, travel all around the world, and you sell the club or you talk about the club, but you've got to, shall we say, um, uh, get that sort of feeling first when you actually play for the football club. Yes, you could talk about Sunderland being a football club, being very passionate, but a lot of supporters speak like that about their own club anyway. But you've got to be amongst it. You've got to be there. You've got to feel it, and you've got to sort of experience what it's like to play for Sunderland and play in front of huge support, and the passionate of the Northeast itself. There's something which, as you've just mentioned there, it is unique. No matter where you go in the Northeast, the first thing they want to talk about is football, and especially in Sunderland, Newcastle. There's only two clubs which you support. You're either red and white or black and white. It's very rare that you might support a Manchester United or a Manchester City or a Chelsea or an Arsenal, like maybe in some other areas. But in the Northeast, there's only two clubs.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. So yeah, when you came to Sunderland, I believe you scored in your debut, didn't you? What was there? Was there anything?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, was there anything like early in your time that stood out as a real memory for you, like early?
Yeah, again, my first impression, especially coming to Sunderland, the first aim for me was to get into that first team, to establish yourself. You've got to remember that when you've come to a football club, people are obviously thinking, what are you like? Are you a good player, bad player? What you're good at, what you're bad at? Can you express yourself? And especially when the managers brought you in as well, who was at your previous club. Again, that adds a different sort of pressure on you as well, because all of a sudden they're thinking, oh gosh, he's the gaffer's boy here who's come in. He'll be all eyes and ears to the ground. So we've got to better be careful what we say or what we do. So yeah, you got to deal with that. But you get in, you show what you're good at, that you can play. And then what you've got to try to do then is try to force yourself into that, shall we say, starting 11. And when you get out there, force yourself into that starting 11, gaining the respect of the players, but also, showing the supporters as well, because again, using that word that you've used before, unique. I was sort of unique for Sunderland at that time, back in 1984, talking about putting on a red and white shirt, but also being a black player doing it. That's something which Sunderland supporters, many Sunderland supporters haven't seen. I think the only other black player who actually played before me, who played a few games, was a lad called Rory Gregoire, and he played a couple of games. And so it was something new to myself. It was something new to the supporters, and to score, to be in that starting lineup. Everyone must have been thinking, raising their eyebrows and thinking, "Ooh, what have we got here? What's he like as a player? How is he going to play?" And then to score after 2 minutes, all of a sudden, you got a lot of supporters who's right behind you.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about, obviously, you've been a black player for Sunderland, especially with the timing of it as well. I mean, things aren't exactly perfect now, but I can imagine years ago it would have been completely different. But obviously, you scored so early in your Sunderland career. Like, how important is it when you come to a new club and such a big club with such fans, that you start right and that you don't start things on the wrong foot?
Yeah, I think it's important. When you go to a new club, it's important that you start right. You start, shall we say, on the front foot. You've tried to fit in, but it's not just a one-game wonder. It's something where we talk about being consistent. Consistency is key. That's what you've got to be doing week in, week out. You've got to understand the supporters and understand what they're looking for. You've got to understand the area as well. That's something which you've got to sort of address. You've got to have that feeling and what the supporters want.
Yeah, you touched on that. Obviously, you've been a black player for Sunderland, and obviously you played predominantly in the 80s and 90s. I mean, as I say, there's still problems in the last week, you know, that we've experienced, really, that they're still being outlined. But just how was it back, you know, back in the day, so to say, you know, all those years ago where things were different? Do you think it made it much harder for yourself to fit in and win the fans over or not?
Yeah, well, it's always difficult, you know, no matter where you go. You know, not just about obviously the colour of my skin. It might be somebody's religion, somebody's nationality, or even somebody's culture. You know, it's always going to be difficult especially when you go to a new club, is to win the supporters over. And I think the best way to do that is by playing football. You know, and to perform week in, week out. And you know, once you start doing that, hopefully they look, you know, past whatever culture you are, whatever nationality you are, what religion or whatever colored skin you are, you know, they accept you for you being, for the qualities what you've got. And then, you know, hopefully, you know, they'll get to understand. I think now what we look at now when we're talking about black players or other players of religion or nationality or cultures, is that education is key.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do now is that we've all, you know, it's up to all of us to educate ourselves. And if we can't educate ourselves and educate others as well, you know, in regards of what is right and what is wrong. And again, if something which makes you feel, shall we say, uncomfortable, then I think you're just in the right to challenge that person.
Yeah. What specifically would you say needs to be done in terms of education? Because this has been a year in particular when this has been a conversation that's happened so often, and the word education seems to crop up a lot. What would you say in particular needs to be done in terms of educating people, educating yourself even?
Well, again, you know, what we talk about, especially when we talk about football, you know, one thing which most probably what you look out for and other people look out for is role models. Now, if you've got somebody as a role model who is in a key position, then hopefully they're in a position where they can make change. Now, if you haven't got a person in that key position, then, you know, change will never happen, because they don't, you know, that person who's in a key position, that's somebody you can look up to, somebody who understands, you know, what you're going through, understands your feelings, you know. But again, you know, it's interesting when he's speaking, what can we do? You know, we've tried all different things, finding football clubs. Does it work? We've, you know, deducted points. Does it work? No, it's still going on.
So do you think that the main way to tackle it going forward would be to have maybe a bit more representation?
I think it's massive. It's massive representation. I think no matter no matter what you do, I think representation is key. I think that, you know, I use an example. If you traveled somewhere and, you know, straight away you've seen somebody from, shall we say, the Northeast, I'll use the Northeast in general, or straight away you've got a link. You know, you'd be more attracted to that person than anybody else in that group, because you've got something which you can talk about, which, you know, you're from the same area. You know, so for instance, if you've got, you know, if you go somewhere and, for instance, everybody's black and there's only one person who's white, you'll be attracted to that white person, because you've got something in common, and you've got something where you can talk about, and you've got the same sort of feeling. So, you know, representation is key. And that's not, I'm not just talking about the color of skin. It could be the nationality. Again, when we talk about nationality, if somebody's speaking the same language of you, you're going to be attracted to that person.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, that's where I think, you know, you look right throughout football. You look at, shall we say, coaching levels. You look at managerial levels. You look at boardroom levels. You look at ownership levels. Now, you look and tell me about representations. So, you know, for example, for me, you know what I mean? I'll use Sunderland as an example. Now, you're looking through maybe the coaching pathway. You're looking at the coaching at the academy, or even at first team level. You're looking at for me, if I've seen anybody, do I see anybody who represents me? Not really. Now you look at the playing level, then you're thinking, well, what players represent me on that pitch in regards of colour of skin? Now you're thinking straight away, there's only maybe 1, 2. You might have, okay, Kim Pioka when he plays. You got Jordan Willis if he plays. And then you take Jordan Willis, Kim Pioka, okay, we've got Sanderson out of that. Then you're thinking, yes, we're in 2020, but then you look at the team and then you're thinking, they're all white.
Mm.
And then you look at other teams, and 9 times out of 10, other teams have more representation in their team than Sunderland. But that's not that. I'm just using that as a point.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not having a go or saying anything negative about Sunderland. I'm just saying it's something where, if as a young person, if you go into an academy and you've got somebody who represents you, not just, as I say, colour of skin. It might be, again, it might be religion. It might be anything. That's somebody who you can relate to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in the lower divisions in particular, there's probably a higher ratio of probably your typical white British players, and then when you go into the Premier League, it gets a little bit more diverse. I'm not really sure why that is, but I think it's just the way it is at the moment, really. Would you say that you're one for quotas and things like that while we're on this topic? Do you think it would be right to kind of set quotas and targets for clubs to hit in terms of having players from different nationalities, different cultures, different religions, things like that, or coaching staff or board members even?
Well, we're talking about, you know, again, we've talked a lot about this in regards of maybe the Rooney Rule, you know, applying for jobs. And, you know, that for me is what I call lip service, you know, trying to tick the box. You know,
I agree with you.
You should get the job because of your ability, because that's what you're good at. Now, if you're not good at it and you haven't got the qualifications, it's a waste of time applying for the job. You know, so, you know, I'm not looking at, give him the job because of his skin color, give him the job because of his religion or nationality or culture. That's not the reason why you should give him the job. You should give him the job because he is good, or he is capable, or he should get the job because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I just thought I would ask your opinion, saying as we're talking about this anyway. Just moving on ever so slightly, when I had Kieran Brady on, he was saying that he experienced what he thought. I mean, he was quite a young player when he's at Sunderland, but he experienced quite a lot of, shall we say, maybe a bit of exploitation, maybe as a young player, and that he maybe wasn't respected as he should have been. Just as someone who was around a similar type to Kieran, would you say that when you were a player at Sunderland or anywhere else, that there was any moments where you thought maybe coaching staff or managers maybe didn't quite show you the respect you deserved, or maybe did seek to exploit you slightly just as a player above anything else?
Well, again, yeah, I think you have that all the time. I think, you know, not just when me and Kieran was playing. I think it was before even me and Kieran were playing, and I think it still goes on now. You know, I think, as I've just mentioned before, I think we're a little bit more, shall we say, educated and aware, a little bit more, shall we say, proactive in regards of challenging when we obviously see things which don't sit right with us or make us uncomfortable. We're willing to challenge. But as I said, you know, talking about, you know, Kieran seeing things, and obviously when I was playing as well, I think that just happened in normal life. I think if you look on TV, the programs which we watched and which we laughed and we, shall we say, at the time we thought was funny. But when you reflect back now, then you find there was maybe a racist tone to them programs. You know, so yeah, you can look at maybe the way managers, obviously football's moved on. Now, you know, managers in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or even the 90s, the way they manage is totally different to the way managers manage now in the 20th century. You know, what you may be able to get away with as a manager in regards of how to put things over, Now that won't be acceptable in a changing room. So yeah, you got to look at how times have changed, how we actually do things, how we approach things, how we speak about things. So yeah, the old, shall we say, approach is totally changed.
Hopefully for the better as well. Do you have any best like standout Sunderland memories? Anything that stands out above the rest is a best memory?
That, as you know, I look back and I've got to say I was lucky. You've got to be lucky, you know. People say, would you rather be good or be lucky? I'd rather be lucky. You know, I mean, you can be good, but you know, how long is that going to last for? But no, I was lucky. When I say lucky, I had a fantastic career. You know, to be at one club for 11 and a half years. You know, to play top level football. You know, as a young kid growing up, these are all the things which you tick the box. That's why you want to be. You want to play in front of thousands of people week in, week out. You want to play top level football. You want to captain your team. You know, you want to play at Wembley. You want to play at FA Cup finals and League Cup finals. You want to be sort of respected in the game. You know, you want to play against your Manchester Uniteds and Manchester Cities and score. You know, their dreams what come true. Yeah. You know, not many people score against Manchester Uniteds or your Liverpools or your Manchester Cities. You know, these are things which we actually dream about, but to actually go and perform and do them, it's fantastic. So you reflect back on that, and it's something which they can't take away from you. You know, so you know, there's lots and lots of things which I've achieved, especially playing for Sunderland, which you know I wouldn't change.
Yeah, but in terms of a best memory, was there anything that stood out above the rest?
Best memory, again, when you talk about best memory, you know, for me, putting on a red and white shirt is a memory. But you know, scoring on your debut, that's a memory. Scoring against Manchester United, that's a memory. Scoring against Manchester City is a memory. Captain the team at Wembley is a memory. Playing in an FA Cup final is a memory. Playing in a League Cup final is a memory. Getting a testimonial against Glasgow Rangers is a memory. Getting promotion is a memory. So there's loads and loads of memories which go on and on and on. And there's also lots and lots of other things which you remember which disappoint you as well. You know, getting relegated, getting beat or whatever. You know, they're all memories. They don't go away from you. You still remember them, but you don't like to remember them. You just want to remember the good things.
Yeah. I was just wondering if there was like one moment you could pick out of your entire Sunderland career, but like this moment was better than anything else. Was it the goal in your debut? Was it getting promoted? Was it captaining us at Wembley? What was it?
It's a hard one for me. I can't actually say which is your best one for me. We played Manchester City in 1991, 92. Basically, it was the last game of the season. We took in the region of 17,000 supporters down to Main Road, and we got beat 3-2. I scored in that game, but my mum and dad was in the stand behind the goal with the Sunderland supporters when I scored. You know, and I've seen videos of my mum and dad and everybody jumping all over my mum and dad. Yeah. That was key. That you know, if you want to talk about memories, that is a great memory.
All right, that was interesting to hear. Actually, like a lot of, like Danny Collins said, for example, it was his when Kieran Richardson scored against Newcastle. Matt Piper, sorry, said playing against Newcastle, but I guess that's a unique one. That is like a goal in a game that we lost. It was the last game of the season, but like because your family were there, it made it more special.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and you know, and again, you know, you have to be there to realise, you know, even the Manchester City supporters applauded the Sunderland supporters at the end of the game because they couldn't believe the amount of supporters which we actually travelled, even in the situation which we were in, and that's the respect which Sunderland supporters have right around the country and right around the world. the travelling the thousand and the respected, and it's a massive game for the opponents when Sunderland come to their town or their city.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you touched on there, like you got promoted as a Sunderland player, and something that we've struggled with, for the last few years has been getting promoted. What do you think, in your opinion, is it down? I mean, it's definitely a number of things, but if you had to put it down to one area, I mean, a lot of people are putting blame on Stuart Donald, a lot of people are putting it on the managers, a lot of people are saying the players need to take more responsibility. If there was one area that you would put responsibility on our failures the last few years, or if there was one maybe standout moment where you think if we'd done this differently, like what do you think it would have been?
I think one way to cover all that is management, and that's not just on the field but off the field as well. I don't think you can put it down to one thing. I just think that it's being badly managed, the football club, and it's been a case of lots of little things being put together, and it's caught up, and it's become a huge issue now. Now, we can go back 4, 5, 6 years. You can dig deep and thinking, where did it go wrong? And it was just a accumulation of little things which have slowly been there. We've been fighting relegation for a few years in the Premier League, and we missed the trap door. And it's, it was a case of sooner or later, unfortunately, it's going to open, and we're not going to be able to save ourselves, which has happened. And you can look back, and some supporters can say, "Oh, we think that's a good thing because it might be a wake-up call. We might go down into that division and start winning games." It's not that easy. It's easily said. Yeah, it's easily said than done. Now, you do that, and then all of a sudden it didn't work, and then you're thinking, okay, we're going to go back down. We got relegated again, thinking, okay, right, it can't get any worse. And we say that every week, can't get any worse. We get down and thinking, right, we're going to dust ourselves off. I was part of the team which got relegated into the old third division, and people thinking, yeah, it's going to be the same as what it was when we got relegated, and we're going to bounce straight back. It didn't happen, and that's where we are at the present moment. It's easily said than done. There's a lot of work to be done. You look at Lee Johnson's just come in. He would have a look at the club, and from the outside looking in, fantastic. Everything's in place. Beautiful stadium, lovely academy, great support, everything there. But when you dig deep, when you go inside and you look around and you're thinking, where do I start? So there's a lot of work to be done. It's not going to be done over a season. It's going to be a development. It's going to take maybe 3 or 4 seasons for us to get back on our feet again. Yeah,
I think if you're going back like years and years ago to, well, I would say there was a bit of I don't know, there was a new feeling, a new direction about the club when we got after we got relegated to the third division. But I think if you're going back before then, I think management from the top was the key problem, where we had an owner who didn't really know what he was doing, and I think he'd employed people who again didn't really know what they were doing, and there was I mean, God, it really got exposed on the second series of the Netflix documentary, the financial problems, and it was even things like having the career chamber for the chairman to use once a month for his bad back or something, and we're paying £300,000 a year for or something like that. But I think since we've got into League One, I think it's a culmination of things. I think for me, one of the big turning points is when Josh Madger left, and I still stand by that. I think if we kept Madger, we would have probably been promoted in that first season. We're all right. Maybe we would have went and would have came straight back down, but I doubt it.
Yeah. As I said, you can look. Yeah, it's easy to look back now. You know what I mean? If it's all ifs and buts, And again, if we would have kept Josh Madger, would we still be in this division? Who knows? But he was scoring goals, and that's something which we've struggled to replace. First thing you need is somebody to put the ball in the back of the net. Now, if you've got somebody who can put the ball in the back of the net, then you're thinking, right, we're on the right lines here. Somebody who's going to guarantee 15, 20 goals a season. If you find that, and then, from a defensive point of view, if you've got a defence which ain't going to concede many goals, then yeah, the foundations are set there. But it's just that everything, you know, as you said, it's been a build up, and you know, yes, we had owners who, you know, can reflect back on Ellis Shaw, who had a lot of money. And to be fair, the money at times helped us out because we used to buy our way out of trouble. But unfortunately, you only can do that for so many times. So it's not a case of money. We've had it, but we've squandered it. And that's one reason why we're in this situation.
Yeah. Just on Josh Maja, like when a player wants to leave a club, as well, I think it was his agent more than him, but regardless, I think Maja wanted out eventually. He wouldn't have left if he didn't. Do you think it's better to keep a player even if they're going to add great value, or when a player wants to go, the writing's on the wall and you've just got to bite the bullet and let them go?
Well, it depends if it's up to the manager and whoever else, the owners, whoever else, to sit that player down and have that chat and ask, maybe pose the question, why does he want to go and where is he going? Is he going to a club which is he going to be better off? You know, is it a money issue? Is it because he's not playing? You know, there's all different points and issues which might push a player to wanting to leave a club. Now, you know, sometimes you might have to sort of come to a settlement and just say, look, you know, let's have a look at it at the end of the season. We'll all sit down and see where we are. And if we know further forward, then yes, it's the parting of the waves. You know, you just say, right, okay, shake hands, on you go. But if he's going somewhere where he's not actually going to better himself in regards of playing wise, is it the money issue? Then you've got to think, can we afford, or can we come to some sort of agreement? If it's a financial thing, then, you know, then that might work.
Yeah, I think looking back, it was that his agent had just persuaded him that he needed to go abroad, and I think his agent was thinking about himself and thinking about the money really. Going into this season, did you think that Phil Parkinson had been given enough in terms of the squad to win promotion? Because when I look back, I think, like, God, the number of free agents we had going into this, we could have signed going into the season. Marcus Madison's one, Luke Garbutt, Fraser, Dimitri Mitchell, Nangele. They're all names that spring to mind, players that we could have had without even spending a penny on a transfer fee. Do you think that going into the season, the squad was good enough to win promotion? That's been a real talking point this season.
Well, again, you know, the numerous times I've heard, you look at Sunderland's team sheet, or look at Sunderland's team, the squad, and straight away everyone's saying, "Oh, that's a good squad. That's a great squad. That you shouldn't struggle." But you know, time and time again, you say you don't win games on team sheets. You know, you've got to go out there and perform. So you look at the players we've got. Yes, they should be better positioned than what they are. But it's going out there and doing it, you know. And again, yes, it's what we could have got and who we couldn't get. But again, you know, we've had good players. We've got good players. You know, it's a case of getting them to knit as a team and to focus and to get to where we need to do and to get to where we need to get. And that's out of this division. You know, you don't say the likes of Will Gregory use as an example, that is, he becomes a bad player overnight. You know, he's a player who scores goals for fun. Now, you've got to look and say, why ain't he scoring goals? Are we creating enough chances for him? You know, then you got, okay, we've just seen Aidan McGeady come back into the squad, into the team. Now, ability-wise, fantastic. Yes, he'll have these ups and downs, and players do fall out with managers. That happens at every single football club. But at the end of the day, you've got to think of it as a team. Is he going to be good for the team? And if he's the one who's going to be good for the team and get you the points, then he's got to be involved somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely think that from the start of the season, we've really lacked a plan B at times, and I think we've really lacked someone who can create chances, take responsibility, and grab the game by the scruff of the neck. And the only player I think we've got who can do that really is McGeady. I think Maguire on a good day will at times do something like that, but that's to an inconsistent level. And I was screaming for McGeady to come back, and it was a week ago, wasn't it? Last Friday when the club dropped that video on Twitter. I don't think I've ever been more excited for a football match in my life, just to see him back. Like, I was over the moon to see him come back. You seem to be in agreement with us there, that you've got a if you've got a player who might have his struggles like McGeady, where maybe he has got this attitude problem, or maybe he's not the most cohesive with the squad, right? It's the manager's responsibility to get the most out of him.
Yeah, definitely so. And again, you got to think that you've got a changing room which is full of maybe 20 odd different characters, and that's something where your management comes in, and you've got to find what's the best way and what's not the best way. Now, you can look at it and thinking, right, I'm leaving him out, and it works for the football club. Now, when it doesn't work for the football club, then you'll be scratching your head. Now you've got to sort of get that relationship with players, and say, well, what's going to good for the club? What's the best formation for the club? Which is the best way to go about it? Who to play? Who not to play? Yeah, there's lots of decisions to make. Who to bring into the club? Who to release from the club? So yes, it's a hard job for a manager. It's never easy. If he does right, he does wrong. You know what I mean? So at the end of the match, somebody's he's going to upset somebody. It's all about opinions, football. So no matter what 11 he picks, it's always the wrong 11. No. Formation is always the wrong formation. Why did he do this? So he's always going to get questioned, but that's a manager's position. That's what you're there for. When it goes right, when it goes well, you take all the plaudits. Yeah, but it's soon forgotten. Next week is another game. The following week's another game. The following season's another season. And if you don't do too well, they'll soon remind you that you're not doing too well. So that's football for you.
Yeah. In your experience as a player, did you often experience things like cliques with things that were mentioned? I mean, it was all allegations, of course, but there was a lot of talk about McGeady and Maguire potentially forming a clique in the training ground, that upsetting like the harmony of the squad. Is in your experience as a player, did you think that was present throughout your career, and how does it really affect the squad? Is it as big as people think it is?
No matter where you go, it's like what I've just spoke to you before. If you go into a changing room, it's full of characters, and like I've said before, in regards of role models, if you see somebody who maybe speak the same language, or the same color, or same culture, or you've got something in common, sometimes you are sort of attracted to that person. So you will, no matter where you go, you'll have a group of 4, you might have a group of 2, you might have another group of 4 somewhere else, you might have somebody who just stays on his own. That's football. It happens. You might say, oh, I'm going for something to eat, I'm going for an Italian. Somebody will jump on and say, oh, I like Italian. So maybe 3 or 4 of you's going to have something to eat. Might go for a coffee. So there's always groups. I won't say cliques, but there'll be always groups. Some like this, some like that. That's how football is. The wives might get on, the girlfriends might get on, the families might get on. You might be somebody because you're from the same country or the same region. All of a sudden there's a bond there between the families or the players. So you've got something in common. Maguire, I would imagine, might have played with McGeady, been up in Scotland. So straight away they might have a little bond. They've played against it. You have players who you play against, and straight away you've got this little connection. So it happens all the time. You cannot say, right, okay, right, let's go out, and we've got 24 players all going along together. 2 will go somewhere, 4 will go somewhere, 1 will go somewhere, 5 will go somewhere. So you're always going to have little groups.
Mm-hmm. In your experience, if it gets bad and it gets toxic, like it seems to have done at Sunderland, how much can it really affect a squad? Do most players just tend to put whatever friendship group that they seem to be a part of, or whatever personal issues might have aside, or do some players take the personal issues into the game and actually let it affect the performance? Because I think that's what we saw last season.
Well, again, that's when you're looking for leadership. You're looking for people to take responsibility. And usually looking at maybe senior pros. Now, if you feel or see something which doesn't sit right, or you feel that you're losing track, then I think it's up to the senior pros to grab hold of it and sort it out themselves. And that might, for me, I was one of them players. I don't mind falling out with anybody. You know what I mean? Over a game of football, you still be friends. But what you're trying to do, is improve or develop or make sure that they do the right things. And that's one reasons why you might use your experience to help usually young players, but it might be even a senior player, to point them in the right direction, saying, this is the best way to go about it, or this is the best way to do this, or this is the best way to do that. And it's all about opinions. You're giving your opinion. You're speaking as you see it, and maybe it might be a kick, what they might need up the bum, to say, look, you need to pull your fingers out. You need to do more. You need to cross the ball. You've got to make sure you hit the areas. You've got to make sure you win your headers. You've got to make sure you win your tackles. You've got to make sure you stop the crosses coming into the box. That helps everybody. That helps the team. That might help you to go on and get the 3 points.
Yeah, just like putting things aside and winning the game is,
That's right.
It's got to be done, and you've got to put aside whatever personal issue you might have with someone just to do that. And that just doesn't go for football. That goes for everything in life. If you work in an office, or with what you do now with your radio work, if you ever fall out with someone, you just got to get on with it and do the best job you can.
You're not going to please everybody all the time. You can please some of the time. You can't please them all of the time.
Yeah, that's something I've really had to come to terms with. That you're not gonna be everyone's best mate. That's
right. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter how good you are, you can have, out of 100 people, 99 love you, but you'll have one who dislikes you, and that one person who dislikes you will be playing on your mind, because you're thinking, he doesn't like me. There's something wrong.
Yeah, I know. But as you say, you've just got to accept that's the way it is, and put it past you. Gary, I don't know if you're listening, but obviously the club are doing the Unfiltered podcast at the moment. Danny Collins and Frankie Francis getting the players and a few other people involved, and they had Christian Speakman, I think his name is, on the new sporting director. What are your opinions on the now new shift we've got in terms of a club where we've went from having a manager to now having a sporting director and a head coach? One thing Kieran said, I thought he made a really fair point. He said this. When he said this, he said that the sporting director might not necessarily be brought in as a sporting director, but there's been a lot of people over the last few years who've we've removed a lot of people from office, and then actually he might have came in just to replace all the little gaps we've had. I remember the academy director left, and I don't think he's been replaced yet. So what are your opinions on the new direction?
Well, again, it's something which they need a template. As simple as that. I've always been barking on about a template, and that template will be, the type of player what Sunderland need, and what type of player Sunderland wants to go for. So that we all basically are singing from the same hymn sheet. Simple as that. Yes, and that's what I've talked about before in regards of positions, putting a plan together. Everybody's working off this plan. As I say, we need an academy manager. We need head of recruitment manager. We need the head of scout manager coming in. And you just hope Christian Speakman can get the right people in to put things in place. As you say, it's like a jigsaw, and hopefully that relationship he can build up with the manager as well. So they're all, putting their little own input into it, and it all comes out and it makes a big picture. So yeah, there's a lot of things need doing, but again, we've been down this road before in regards of a director of football.
Didn't go fantastically.
Yeah. So again, it's what position does he hold? Is he above the manager, below the manager, on the same level as manager? Is it a position where he brings the players in and Lee Johnson plays them?
I think that's what to me what it looks like is if that could be the case, but with a lot of discussion between the two to make sure that they are singing from the same hymn sheet, as you said.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, if whatever positions they are, they've both got to come to an agreement. You know, because if they can't come to an agreement, it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really resonate with what you were saying when you were saying that we need a template and a direction, and then everyone knows what it is to do. And one thing that really impressed me about Christian speaking when he was on the Unfiltered podcast is he spoke about the changes they made in the academy already, and he said that when he came in, all the academy players were getting treated essentially the same. The under-23s, namely, but he said that you need to split them into 4 groups. One of which is the players that are on the brink of, if not breaking into the first team. Another one that is, you know, some of the better or more experienced under-23s players who aren't quite on the brink of breaking into the first team, but could maybe do with a loan or a little bit more experience somewhere. First and second year scholars who also need to be tracked differently to each group, and then who also need to be tracked differently to each group is the 16 and 17-year-old lads who are just, you know, a bit more advanced than the under-18s. And I think it's key to have, whatever it is, you have a direction and you stick to it. With all the shifts we've had recently, with, you know, changing chairman, changing owner, changing board of directors, changing manager, changing coaching staff, changing squad. It must wreak havoc, especially with young players trying to progress through the academy. When things are constantly chopping and changing direction, you know, you want to know what it is you've got to work towards. And but I have so far, from what I've seen of him, I've got confidence in Speakman, and I think he came across really well on the podcast that they did.
Yeah, excellent. Like you said, it's that pathway. We talk about pathways, and that's the pathway what they need. You know, there've got to be certain pathways for the people who's on the verge or on the edge of getting into the first team squad, the 23s, the 18s, the 16s, the young academy players coming through. You know, there've got to be a pathway, and this is what they've got to do. This is what they've got to go. This is their goals. You know, and I think that's what they need to do, and you've got to just stick by it. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously, Lee Johnson was appointed as manager. Well, they said last Saturday. My personal theory is that it was on Friday night. They just waited to announce it. What were your thoughts on Lee Johnson when he got appointed? Do you like the look of him? I seem to rate him. You look at his short history as a manager. He quite impressed me, and I like what he's going to bring.
I've answered this question numerous times about managers. You know, what about him? What about, is he going to be good? Is he going to be bad? What do you think he'll get us out? Do you think, you know, it's like I said all the time, managers are judged on results.
Yeah.
Now, you can't tell me, oh, I like the look of him, I like the look of him, or whatever. Okay, you might like the look of him by the clothes he wears.
No, I think he's got a good record.
The way he walks, it might be the way he talks, it might be whatever it is. Okay, you know, people say, oh, he sounds a good manager. Oh, he looks like a good manager. I don't know what a good manager looks like. What does a good manager look like?
I think it's his track record. You know, at Oldham, he did a really sound job. At Bristol City, he moved them forward as a club so much.
Right.
And I think if you are going to go down the path of what does he look like, how does he talk, I think the way he's come across in the post-match press conferences has been fantastic. One thing about Parkinson that I didn't like was the way that he looked a bit unenthusiastic at times, and to me he often tried to hide and kind of push responsibility on the other people and other beings. Like he would often comment on the pitch or the officials' performance, as opposed to taking responsibility when we weren't good enough. Whereas for me, Lee Johnson, he seems to take responsibility straight away. I actually watched his post-match interview of when we went down Bristol City and drew 3-3, and the entire way through the interview, he seemed to say that he seemed to take responsibility and almost wanted to put the blame on himself. And I think if you've got a manager like that, well, you're only going to move forward as a football club. If you are, as a person, maybe not even quite self-critical, but if you're happy to take responsibility for your role, then you can only move forward, because then you'll find out where the problem areas are, which is something that we need to do with the squad at the moment, because the performances haven't been good enough, the results haven't been good enough, and then you can go about establishing strategies to overcome them, and that's where we really get judged, I think, is what you were maybe trying to say.
Right. So why did he leave Bristol then, if he's that good?
Well, he left Bristol, I
Go
believe.
on.
I don't know him personally, Gary, but I think
No,
he
no.
left.
What I always say, yeah, there's great managers, talk well, whatever. But managers will tell you they'll get the sack somewhere along the line.
Yeah, every manager has most managers will have
They're
an
going to get
unsuccessful
the, they'll turn on to say to you, they'll get the sack sometime. It's understandable. No matter what you do, if Lee Johnson gets us up, gets us into the Championship, gets us into the Premier League, wins the Premier League, yeah. The
I don't think
following
he's
year,
got to do that.
no, I'm just saying, if he does that, great. And then the following year, after winning the Premier League, he doesn't win it, or he finishes 5th, 6th, they'll ask for his head. They'll want him sacked.
Going back to the question of why I left Bristol, because I do want to answer that now you've asked me. I think he left Bristol because he was at a bit of a stalling point with the project, where when he came in, Bristol had so many problems where they were a team battling relegation, maybe not so financially sound, maybe the squad wasn't quite working cohesive enough, and even the systems in place with the academy and with other people weren't quite where they could have been. But he took them forward as a club, and they managed to become a club battling relegation. And maybe he just thought it's not in my hands anymore to really take us any further forward, and that's what we need to do. Obviously, all that was left for him to do at Bristol was get promotion, and they tried and failed that for about 2 or 3 years. But what's that down to Lee Johnson? I heard a Bristol, I think there was a Bristol City podcaster or something, who said that he thinks that Lee Johnson took a lot of the flack and a lot of the responsibility for the sporting director's potentially poor signings. Could that have been a reason why I thought I can't take this club any further forward because of the sporting director that's currently here, and he's making signings and I can't work with the players?
Okay.
If that's different at Sunderland, then maybe that's why that's why he can do a different job with us. But he still did a great job at Bristol, and he was there, 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. Yeah. And as I say, he took them from a team battling relegation to a team that was nearly getting promoted, which I think you can't say that that's not a decent job, whatever club you're at.
Yeah, it is a decent job. And like you've just mentioned there, it got to the point where, him and the sporting director didn't see eye to eye. Now, that could easily happen here. If you don't get results, who do you point the finger at? Does it point the finger at the sporting director, or does it point the finger at the manager? The manager is the one who always going to get the fingers pointed at. And, yes, you've said, I like Lee Johnson. Fantastic. I always think, get results, you judge on results. If Joe Blogg's come in and got us results, I'll be over the moon. Now, you tell me you like Martin O'Neill.
Mate, at the time,
yes.
I thought it was
somebody everybody wanted Martin O'Neill as manager. Oh, he's going to be great. Why did he then?
Why did he what? Sorry,
why didn't he succeed? You like the look of him, fantastic.
Well, not every manager's going to do well at every club, but I think when you look at the short list of managers we had, looking back, Lee Johnson was probably one of the best options we could have go for. You can only go off someone's history, aside from Lee Johnson, if he wouldn't have been your appointment, who would it be?
No, I like I've said, anybody. I'm fingers crossed Lee Johnson can get it right. But I'm just going off over the last 8 years. Maybe we've had 12 to 14 managers, good managers. Advocate. You've had Roy Keane's, your Martin O'Neill's, you name it, to roll off the tongue. Now, you tell me, did you like the look of him, or is it? Oh, nah, there was never. They didn't fit with Sunderland.
What is this, Martin O'Neill?
No, any of them.
Well,
you look back, look at the managers which we've had. Now, surely you would have said, "Oh, I like the look of him. Oh, he's done a great job here. He's done a great job there. Oh, he'll get us going." Why haven't they succeeded?
I think it's clear now that, especially but especially before we got taken down into the third division, we had clear problems in the club from top to bottom, where we had a squad of unmotivated players, a lot of which on ridiculously high wages. Jack Rodwell's the name that always springs to mind for me. A lot of them didn't really want to play for the club. They were just happy to pick up a paycheck. I think we also had an owner who didn't really know what he was doing. People working just below the owner who didn't really know what they were doing. A lot of people who didn't really care. To me, I look at someone like Martin Bain, like, was he even really that bothered? And then I think when you go after that, I don't think those same problems are there anymore. I think we've overcome a lot of problems since the Donald and Methven era. We've got new problems. I think if you look at it since Donald and Methven took over to move on and create two separate eras, because it is, maybe the reason why Jack Ross and Phil Parkinson haven't succeeded. I think Jack Ross, personally, I don't think he was good enough as a manager.
Why?
That's where. Well, I can't know 1 second. I think that's why. That's one where I would specifically say he maybe wasn't the right fit for the job as an individual. Why? Because, in my opinion, he had the best squad in the league, and he had 46 league games and about 20-ish in the cup to find his feet with a squad and a system that was going to win us games. And he took us all season, and he didn't. We ended up finishing 5th in the league, when, in my opinion, we were the best squad in the league. As I say, he had time to try things and find a system, and he had time when manager left to find another way of scoring goals. Will Grigg, as much as Will Grigg's got to take responsibility for the lack of goals he scored, I think he put far too much on him, and maybe we could have tried something different. I definitely think he had the tools there available. One thing I always say with Jack Ross is that we seem to really struggle to keep clean sheets. As soon as Phil Parkinson came in, well, not as soon as he came in, but after a little bit of time, that's something that changed, and Parkinson managed to find a defence that worked and that kept goals out. If you're looking at Parkinson, obviously you can't judge much of him last season because the season did stop significantly earlier, and when you look at the fixtures, I think we had the most favourable running out of the entire top 8. So I would have backed us to get at least into the playoffs, and of course when you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. As for this season, I don't think he was backed properly enough by the board. I mentioned it earlier, the amount of free agents we could have signed that we didn't sign. Nangele, Madison, Garbutt, Fraser, just 4 names that come to mind. You could probably have a full start 11 of them, really, of players good enough for League One who didn't go out and sign. Aside from that, Parkinson maybe didn't quite take the responsibility he needed to. His lack of proactive substitutions, his lack of initiative, I think was something that really killed him off. So a number of issues with Parkinson, but I think, as I say, if you go right back to your advocates, your Martin O'Neill's, as I say, I think that there's been key problems with the squad and with the owners and with the board of directors that have been there for years. And now we don't really have that as much anymore. If I was to then to say why isn't it work with Jack Ross, I would say he wasn't good enough as a manager. With Parkinson, yeah, he wasn't backed. But out of those 2 managers, they were not 2 managers at the time who I wanted us to get. Parkinson would have probably been about my 10th choice when he came in. As much as I did back him for as long as I could, he wasn't helped by the fact that there was lists and lists of managers who would have came before him. Stendhal, Cowley, Paul Cook, just 3 that come to mind.
So you just mentioned Cowley. So you would have got him in front of before Lee Johnson, the Cowley brothers.
Well, my order was Paul Cook or Cowley, and then Lee Johnson came just underneath them.
Interesting.
Why? Who would you have taken then?
I would. Honestly speaking, I'm not really fussed. All I'm worried about is anybody who comes in who can get us results. As simple as that. If somebody comes in and gets us out of this division, that's fine by me. You can get Alex Ferguson in tomorrow. Yeah, would I get excited? As long as he gets us results, as long as he gets us out of this league.
But that's how I think what manager's going to do that?
Well, again, you look at Jack Ross. Yes, at times could have gone a little bit more for him or whatever, but he fell at the final hurdle, didn't he? Got beat in the playoffs. Now, maybe that experience might made him a little bit stronger. And then maybe the following season, when he's in a good position, when he was relieved of his post, he might have been able to push the team because he's had that experience underneath his belt to get us promotion.
I don't think so, because I think going into after the playoffs, I think Jack Ross got worse as a manager, and what was essentially his second season, the same problems were there. 1-1 draws, not being able to kill teams off, being poor defensively, a lack of a system when McGeady's not playing. We're relied too heavily on McGeady. Is what I would say on the Jack Ross, and I don't think he did really learn from his mistakes, because if you look at the playoff final, not the playoff final the final against Portsmouth, which was actually at Wembley, and I think the reason why we didn't go on to win that game is because we held off and we dropped the intensity after half time. Whether that was his instructions or not, barely 8 weeks later, we were playing literally at the same ground, just against Charlton. And after we got gifted a goal, and we went 1-up against Potter, against Charlton, instead of going for it and going to finish them off and take advantage of what would have rocked Charlton as much as Potter would have been rocked when we beat them, when we took the lead against them, he didn't take advantage of that, and he let Charlton come back into the game, and his game plan was, let's defend a 1-0 lead for 87 minutes.
Interesting. But again, we're talking about opinions. Your fingers crossed that Lee Johnson gets it right.
Oh, I mean, both of us want him to. It's
and the thing is, he's got the same players to work with. He's got the same players what Parkinson's got to work with, and it's the same throughout. Your Jack Rosses and people like that. This is the club. This is the squad which you've inherited. Now you've got to try to get the best out of him. You look at Will Grigg. Was that a Jack Ross signing?
Donald signing really.
Well,
Jack Ross actually said don't get him, I think.
Well, exactly. So you have a breakdown. Sometimes you have a breakdown from an owner's point of view. It might be a sporting director's point of view. It might be a manager's point of view. So you might be in a situation where a player comes into the club. Where do you play him? Do you know what I mean? It might be a player like you've just mentioned, a Will Grigg. Did we need a Will Grigg?
I think we needed a striker.
Right. We needed a striker, but then you look at, and again, we go back to that template, what we talked about. What type of striker did we need? Did you need a Charlie White? Did you need a Danny Graham? Did you need an Aidan O'Brien? Do you know what I mean? What type of striker do you want? So you're thinking, well, hold on a minute, straight away, which for me, something which is being spoken about for weeks or months and years and seasons, is that you need pace. You need somebody who can stretch defenses, somebody who can make things happen. We haven't got that striker. Yeah,
no, we haven't. I think if you were to go back, it was definitely a mistake. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Although and no one ever believes us, but I genuinely did think, as we were signing Will Grigg for 4 million, I was thinking 4 million and it might not work out. And I thought that something about you might just not hit the ground running, and then we've got 4 million to pay for a striker, and we're in the third division again. But I think you're right when you say as for years since we came down to League One, we've needed a little bit pace. Watmore's always been a player that a lot of people seem to suggest, but he had his injury problems. He seems like a crap lad, and he genuinely seems to be a genuine lad who would put 100% in. But unfortunately, whatever it was, it didn't work for me. His injury problems, maybe a lack of confidence as well at times. And I never really rated him when it comes to his touch and his technical ability. It's one thing having pace, but you've then got to have the football and ability to back it up. Of
course.
As for pace, I think you're exactly right. I mean, one player who, unfortunately, I didn't get to watch a match on Tuesday night, the first one I've missed so far this season. But a lot of people said that Jack Diamond had a great game.
He did indeed.
Yeah, he seems to have quite a lot of pace and energy about him.
Yeah, and they've got some good young players. We've released 1 or 2 good young players. But
tell me about it.
You got Jack Diamond, you've got Elliot Embleton, you've got Dan Neil. Young players. You're just thinking, where did it fit in? How did it fit in? would, you know, it's easy. It's an easy call to say, oh, play him, play him, play him. You know, yes, great energy, but, you know, it's consistency what you're looking for. You know, can they produce the good, or you're asking too much for him to, you know, play a dozen games? You know, it's a different ball game playing at first team level. It's all right playing under 23s, but when you go into the first team and you've got to produce the goods week in, week out, you know, especially if you're not used to that tempo, you know, it soon catches up with you.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I said on this very show. I said, wait, you need to be able to, you need to be confident that actually these youth players coming in, we aren't just playing them because the youth players. I think Sunderland fans in particular seem to have a huge, I guess it's common among the UK really, but seem to have a real desire to play youth players, but without actually really questioning, are they good enough? I mean, a couple of names you mentioned there, Diamond, Neil, Embleton, another one for me. He played really well against Fleetwood. Oliver Younger, if he's fit.
Yeah.
The centre back, but you've got to actually judge them on how good they are and compare them to the first team players. And if they aren't going to improve us or maybe bring something different, which I think is something that Embleton and Diamond and Neil in particular will do, especially in terms of going forward and creating chances and stretching defences and having different outlets. If they aren't going to bring that, then they can't play because it's all well and good them being young, but if they aren't good enough, then play the senior players.
Correct. And the only way you're going to find out is by playing them.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, if they come in and they have a few bad games and it's maybe not something that you can instantly put down to confidence, then or experience in the first team, then you need to go back to the under-23s and work on that. I mean, but then you look at Denver Hume. You know, it was a player who struggled when he first came in my opinion, so far this season, he's been one of our better players.
Yeah. And again, you know, we go back to management. You know, I mean, that's how our managers got to manage the players.
Yeah, definitely. Gary, this has been a great chat. It definitely went in a direction I wasn't really expecting it to, but I think it's been fantastic anyway. A massive thank you for coming on. Like, it's been
no problem. Hopefully, you've got enough information there.
Oh, I think there's definitely enough to go off there. It was brilliant, really. As I say, you know, thanks for coming on. It has been brilliant. You know, great to speak to you again sometime.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone watching as well. As per, remember to like the video and subscribe if you have enjoyed it. All the social media links, etc., are in the description, and I'll see you later.